2020 has been an interesting year for both the world, the nation, and our community. It's probably we've had some of the some of the largest challenges thrown at us as a city, but one thing I'm very happy about is the resiliency of our staff and our community to deal with impacts that haven't been felt in our community for 100 years. Resiliency matters to me because it shows that as an organization and as a community, we are being proactive and anticipating challenges that may come our way, and instead of just being strictly reactive. Of course, there's certain elements that you're always going to be reactive to. I don't think anybody back in January anticipated we'd be dealing with the global pandemic. So there is definitely things that you need to adapt to on the fly. But I think having an organization that has been used to dealing with challenges, whether it's been flooding or other things, makes it easier for us to adapt quickly to challenges that we may not be anticipating. It's easy for any strategic plan to be looked at by staff and say, okay, what's the connection do I have with those big goals? I think we have some really specific ones this year that staff can directly relate and impact. Water Resources Master Plan is a great example. Many of our staff and variety of departments impact elements of how we deal with stormwater, deal with water resources in our community, whether it's public works staff out working on storm sewer intakes, the park staff working in the Greenbelt where a lot of our stormwater and water resources end up in this community, and our community development staff in terms of planning new development. We've had probably about 3 different potential locations for this building, and it took us a while to land on this spot. But I think that patience that we had with determining what's the best spot for our community, and also for our interrelatedness with some of our surrounding jurisdictions of how we work together, whether it's with the city of Urbandale and the closest unit response that we do for fire and EMS, that this ended up being the best location because it also puts us in a position where our fire station is located in between the 2 Urbandale stations that serve the eastern portions of both communities. And also it puts us on a premium spot on the Hickman corridor in terms of our kind of public presence. The 86th Street Neighborhoods Plan is very key for us in the sense of, as a community, we're about 10 years away from completing the new construction portion of our community in the far northwest area. So now is the right time to be focusing on how do we reinvest in some of the older parts of our community that are maybe getting to the point where the buildings and the infrastructure are hitting life cycle limits, that reinvestment is a prime time for that. And so you want to think about those things because they're harder and they take a lot longer to figure out before your new construction development has ended. And so I think now is a perfect time for us to be really focusing on that. It's been a high priority of the council to seek reinvestment in that part of the community because we've also dealt with some flooding challenges in that part of the community, and with our flood prone property buyout program, trying to figure out what we do with that land really tailors in nicely with the neighborhood plan. I think what's interesting about Lannan is its history also will play into its future. It was very, very early on the heart of the city of Clive. As many people will remember, especially staff that have been here for a long time, that was the home of Clive After 5 for a very long time. And even the Clive Festival actually started at Lannan Park a long time ago. And so how can we bring that heart, particularly for the 86th Street neighborhood, kind of back to that location and really do some true reinvestment. It has one of the oldest shelters in our city that hasn't been rebuilt or hasn't been reconstructed, and so it's really time now to make that reinvestment. University Corridor Planning Project is a key initiative for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a collaboration with another community. The city of West Des Moines approached us saying, we need to look at our side of the street on University, and whether it's Valley West Mall and a lot of other commercial areas where they're trying to determine what's the long-term transition of that area. And we wanted to do the same on our side of university. Certain key pockets that we know are changing and evolving, particularly as retail has changed. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic is really pushing forward a challenge that we knew was already brewing. You know, one thing related to the city's finances that I'm particularly happy about is, again, back to the resiliency conversation. We've been very proactive as a city to put ourselves in a positive financial position. You know, very early on when the pandemic started, the council, we discussed pretty regularly with them of what are the financial impacts to our operating budget. And although we've had some impacts, particularly in the hotel motel tax area, the road use tax area, and a few other smaller revenues, on the whole, for the most part, the city's been pretty insulated from substantial financial losses related to COVID-19. Now, I say that in October of 2020, not knowing what the next 6 months to a year looks like, but because of our sufficient cash reserves that we're holding back, that we're maintaining, it puts us in a position to be very adaptable to changes that we might not even know what happens in the next year. Yeah, 100% inclusivity, whether it's staff or the community, is going to be very important to the success of a lot of the strategic priorities that the council has laid out. Whether it's these neighborhood planning projects where community engagement and getting the input from the folks that live in these neighborhoods in terms of what they want to see for the future of their community, for their families, is going to be very important. Now, we'll have to get creative with some of that community engagement in terms of doing some of this work in the midst of a pandemic and doing it safely for the community. But also, there's a lot of these initiatives where various levels of staff and interdepartmental projects are going to be necessary to see success as well. So this starts at the staff level all the way through to the citizens we serve every day.